of course, he did do really well with Paladin in his first game, so she's not going to let him play that. And I think the top pros are thinking that Secret Paladin is probably the most versatile, best deck in the game. Is that how you would see it?
I think the games are ready to start, so let's jump into the games now.
Okay.
So we see Eloise is playing mid-range Druid versus Xixo's Reno Warlock. I am not quite sure about this matchup. It's going to be pretty interesting. I would say about even, but I'm not sure. Like, you usually say that Sue is favored against mid-Druid and Handlock is unfavored. So, like, this kind of deck has elements from both kinds of decks, so it's going to be interesting to see. I would say, like, pretty even.
Yeah, one of the problems playing against the Reno Warlock is you never quite know where you stand. And what I mean by that is, with it being 28 to 30 different cards, depending on the exact build, the Warlock knows what he's got to do, he knows all your 2-ofs, but you've got to be careful that against the Warlock, you've only got one of each thing to play around, so you've got to play around ideas rather than exact cards. You have to play around Explosive Sheep, Twisting Nether in the Dreadsteed version, for instance.
Yeah, there's just so many different Warlock decks. Yeah, it's kind of the same thing with Mage, actually. They're like those few kinds of classes where it is so difficult to predict. But I'm sure these guys have paid attention to the previous matches, and I'm pretty sure that every time a deck has been showed on stream, they're aware of it. Yeah. So Xixo is going to opt for the Wild Growth here. I think he's going to coin Shade. No, he disagrees. He wants to save the coin for Boom. Is like that's what he want to do. Like, he had the option of coin Shade into Tharasan, but
yeah,
Boom seems really nice. You could also opt for the Keeper Hero Power now.
Okay, so Eloise just obviously trying to get something on the board early in this game. As Druid, you've got to occupy the board to set up, hopefully at some point, the combo, which of course at the moment she's got no part of anyway. So all about just trying to hold on there at the moment.
Yeah, so Eloise wants to cycle instead of taking the damage. Which is understandable. There's no, like, combo pieces are also important in this matchup, I think, so.
Yeah. And don't often see a 3-2 lowly squire in competitive Hearthstone, right?
No, we don't. Oh, Tech, I've not seen that one before in this list. That is interesting. Unfortunately, I guess that was like better than a 2-1. Yeah, it was like average MG. It was only like one really good.
Yeah. Yeah, Bomb's fine there because you get to kill, like you say, you get to kill two of the things off. Boombot obviously capable of just swinging a game, and it goes.
And we also see Reno in Xixo Sand now.
Yeah, one of the things these Warlock decks do that will suit Xixo down to the ground is they're incredibly complicated. You have a lot of ordering things to do, so you have to choose. For instance, they're not playing a Thaurissan, just even though you've got 9 cards in hand. You have to be able to envisage how the game's going to pan out a lot in the future. And
also you can't really always rely on experience, because when you only run one-offs, each game is going to be so much different.
Yes, so it's almost like playing a very high standard arena deck over and over again, where you're not quite sure what you're going to draw on any given hand. And Eloise is getting quite a lot of power on the board here, but Xixo, as you say, has got the Reno. Do you know if he is playing any 2-ofs at all in the deck?
I believe he's not. I'm not 100% sure. But I believe he's not. Playing just like 1, 2-off, I think on average it actually makes it so you draw it, so like your Reno heal is effectively gonna be 5 turns later, just 1 duplicate.
Wow. So it really, I know that a lot of the current lists don't bother, but these decks were submitted some time ago, and there were double Molten Giant in some early versions, I think, and possibly even double Farseer in some of the very early versions. So as you say, hopefully for him he doesn't have doubles, but we don't know for sure. But we haven't seen any cards that would be duplicates if he does.
So that is a lot of damage to take. I think this is gonna be tough for Xixo to come back. I think it's just.
Yeah, well, this is where
well, that's Reno, right?
Yeah, this is where we find out, right? If there's any duplicates in his deck, we know for sure after this next turn.
But even Reno's not really good here. You look at how much damage is on the board. So even if you're Reno, it's not like good. Also, Xixo knows that's Reno in the deck. That's like no way you would ever do that trade unless you know that was a Reno in a deck.
Yeah. So 17 damage showing next turn plus face. So 18 damage plus swipe is 22. Yeah, he's not even trying to Reno here, so...
it's going to be Healbot instead.
And Eloise just looking for any part of normal Druid life, I think, here. She's running slightly low herself, but...
Not a single combo beast yet from Eloise. So is she going to draw for it? She also has to mind her own health, like...
Yeah. And
how much is that? 11 plus 8? That's 19.
Yeah, she has to be careful because some of these decks do play Dark Bomb, Hellfire. You know, we don't know, there might be a Doom Guard in there. She has to look after her life total a little bit. I don't know how much else there would be in there. But...
Also interesting to see what she's going to do with the Shades, because she knows there's a Hellfire and Xixo stack, and they are quite vulnerable. Is she going to be greedy, or is she going to, like, attack face or trade with one of them? Or...
Yeah. She may be working out how she loses this game, and a Hellfire is probably one of the ways, so she may choose to, but it looks like she's going to use the swipe and be a little bit greedy, with only one of everything in the deck, of course.
Yeah, I agree with that trade there. I think it's a really good trade. I would probably attack as well. In that case, I like, when I have like a dominant board, I like just attacking with Shades, because that's enough for Xixo to deal with as it stands.
Yeah, and wow, Xixo's definitely setting up the defense here.
So, is there any way to have guaranteed lethal here?
I think if you trade and let something get stolen, and then play the Druid of the Claw, how much is that?
And let's say the 5/5 gets stolen. It's like it's 8 plus 6, 7, because you can hero power as well. It's like 15.
8. Yeah, there's no way of getting the Wrath.
But if you hero power, that's
power
probably enough. If you Wrath into that, right?
Yeah.
It should be enough.
And Eloise sees it and works it out.
Yep.
And she's going to go 1-0 up. And this, of course, is where Last Hero Standing comes in, for those who haven't seen this format recently. Been playing a lot more again since the World Championships. That means that Eloise will have to keep the same deck, and Xixo won't be allowed to play that deck again in this match.
Yeah. But yeah, like always, always nice to see them spot like not the simplest lethal in the world. We've seen people who miss lethals. That's like.
And they're straight into game 2, by the way. And Xixo choosing to take the Patron Warrior against the Druid. Do you know much about this version since the nerf?
I think Xixo is playing the Shredder version with Boom and Lothar. It's just like his. I think it's just his good old. I guess like in Hearthstone years, it's old. Like it's been a while since the Patron nerf. Like at least in Hearthstone time.
Yes. Yeah.
So I still think he's playing the same list as he played right after the nerf. It's like 1 Slam, 1 Cruel, 1 Ghoul.
And so he obviously thinks he's favoured, or he would have taken his own Druid against the Druid. Is that how you see this match? Is the Patron?
Yeah, I see it as favoured.
And is it still the same strategy where basically you just try and make 4 Patrons as early as possible and hope the Druid can't remove?
Yep. Pretty much it, but you have like better minions to play if you don't have like the combo.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
it's better to play as Shredder than Economics on turn 4 against Druid.
okay. Yeah.
Unfortunately, he don't have any weapons for those 2 Dread Corsairs. That's pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, they're going to sit his hand for until he can get a weapon, because 4 mana 3/3 not quite the thing you want in this game. But it's interesting how you make a deck worse by nerfing it, and yet it improves the matchups against some matchups. Like against Druid now, you actually have more versatile minions, even though you don't have the raw power, because that wasn't your main route to victory. That right, you used to just use board control. Now you actually have better minions than before, like you were saying.
Up to Ghost Face there and not real shader. I kind of like it, even though Xixo has an easy trade into the Keeper with the Shredder. It is still nice to save the Shredder, because obviously Xixo would have went for the Shade instead, with the Shredder instead of the Keeper.
Yeah.
So the counter loads up.
Shade decision is always so difficult in Druid. Looks really easy when you watch people do it, but then when you're sat there and you can't see hands and things, it's like, how big do I make this go? How greedy should I be with it? And
it also depends on the deck. Like if you play Shade in Aggro Druid, you usually unstealth a bit earlier at range.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So
I would imagine
really
most
fast.
people play Raptors now in Aggro Druid, but this list is before Mountain Raptor, so I believe Xixo still plays Shades in his Aggro Druid.
Yeah, that would make sense. As you said at the start, this is the first wing only, and very early days at that. They'd hardly had time to test. Just straight after Seat Story, I think, was the submission date for the decks. Seem to remember people were submitting from the flight and that sort of thing on the way home. So
yeah, basically the first day in this tournament, we only had 1 match, because everyone, like, there was a lot of people stuck between flights, so like no one could make it home.
Wow. Yeah, that's the life of a pro Hearthstone player, right?
Yes. Gonna see a Frothing. Yeah, so Frothing is not one of the cards that has been cut, because it's just such a good tempo card. It's such a threat. But like you don't play it in the same way, obviously, because you don't have the charges. So you just like in matchup where it was your win condition, like against Handlock, you just drop it turn 3.
Yeah, that sounds fair. Like, for example, Spider Tank's almost a playable card, and that's a 3/4 for 3. Like, Frothing's always a 4/4 for 3, and sometimes a lot more. Well, I say always, but
yeah, I know what you mean.
It's as near as damn it. And with obviously the power to have upside as well. And
gonna see some card draw here, and Xixo picks up a weapon now, so at least he can make those cheaper.
yeah, they've sat in his hand for a long time. And I assume this version plays 2 War Acts as well. Like the old version obviously went down to 1 in the end and being streamlined. Xixo was known for cutting the War Acts, but I assume in nowadays he plays 2.
Yeah, you play 2 in pretty much every Patron list. So Ancient of War, I don't know if people remember, but it was actually pretty good against old Patron, and it's still like pretty good against this, like maybe even better against this kind of Patron. So usually, if you play like Ancient of War, you usually try to bait the executes with something earlier, but Eloise is just gonna go for it because Xixo only has 3 cards in hand, so not that likely. And the expected value is so high if there's not an execute here.
She also, I mean, it's going to turn out wrongly in a way, but she would have known there was no Deathbite because of the 2 Corsairs being played as well. So she would have known that he'd have played that earlier to get those down quicker if she had the chance.
Yeah, usually if there's not a Deathbite on turn 4, there's no Deathbite. It's almost always the correct play.
And he's just out of stuff now. Like, he's going to have to find a way. I mean, he's representing a lot of damage because Grom obviously is 10. With the Deathbite.
But I don't think it's gonna cut it. Eloise is definitely in a favorite position here.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to have any way now to just slow things down. Gonna have to just...
At least Xixo can draw, but I mean, it's only 2 cards. He needs to pick up something really good here.
Interesting. Trying everything he can just to survive one more turn.
Oh, that's a lot of damage. 11, 17, 21. That's
yeah, absolute loads. And Eloise is going to go 2-0 up. So that would end up meaning that Xixo is going to have to, if he's going to reverse sweep, he's going to have to do it with Druid, starting off with a mirror.
Yes. And I believe, okay, Ancient War kind of changes, but I believe aggro Druid is favored against mid-range. But I think Xixo, he just loves his patron so much. I think his patron is better. Personally, I would probably pick aggro Druid, but Xixo is so good with patron that he just went for that instead. But aggro, it's still a very good matchup for him. So anything can happen. And
you played as much aggro Druid as anybody in this format, right?
Yeah, I played a lot of aggro Druid. A lot of aggro Druid.
So. Excuse me. And so, yeah, I'll take your word for that one. And so you would say that aggro Druid's favoured, and I'll let you go with the hands here. What is the aggro Druid looking to do apart from obviously aggressively reduce life totals? What are the key cards?
In this, it's different from matchup. In this matchup, you kind of you want like a 1-drop. Let's say you have the coin, you want like 1-drop, and then like coin innovate Fellery. But that's like you basically want to ramp like a big. You don't like the small like the small low drops that's good against aggro are not so good against mid-range Druid.
So Eloise's plan will just be to sit there and not die as long as possible and slowly set up the board control to get combo.
Eloise has decision. She can kill it with raw, she can wild growth. Both are decent decisions.
So wild growth is slightly more sort of careful approach, not necessarily the best, and the rules make sure she keeps the.
Like the Nas is such a threat. You know there's no Wrath in Xixo's deck. I mean, otherwise you would play down 2, but there's not even like a chance for top deck Wrath.
Yeah, that's going to enable her to keep the board and get, well, I guess she has no choice but to play keeper here. She could just do nothing, but might as well develop something on board.
Yeah, she's going to make the ramp permanent here. It's really
nice.
It's a good combo. Like, it's not like always correct to do it. Usually you want to look at a curve. Is it gonna matter? Like let's say she had a shredder or something. Was it gonna matter? But I think it's more correct to do in mid-range Druid, like the silenced Nasus than in this aggro Druid usually, because you have a higher curve in mid-range.
Right. And Xixo's sort of drawn his cards almost in reverse order. He's starting to draw the early drops now. Of course, these cards are really versatile. Things like Living Roots. It's not a disaster to draw it later, right? You can get quite a lot of value.
The advantage of this deck is that it has so many choose one cards like aggro Druid. So you have the option of doing a lot of different stuff. And yeah, 3/2 stealth, it's not playable. A 2/1 charger is not playable, but if you have because the options are so different, like Druid of the Saber is a really strong card, and the same goes with Druid of the Claw. Obviously, that has been like a staple in Druid from the beginning to now.
Right, and so you're actually playing a deck that's effectively got more than 30 cards in it because of all the options that you get from those things.
Yeah. And stuff like the Savage Combatant is really nice as well when you run out of value. It's so nice that your hero power is not just 1 damage. So in a way, it's such a top deck for Xixo. And there's no BGH in Eloise's hands.
And got some e-bots, some boom bots will be really important here actually.
It's fine. He can just hero power Fellery. It's such a strong play still.
Yeah.
But at least Eloise has a key buff for that. 7/2, but it's not a good play still.
Interesting.
So yeah, she can't even set up a 2-turn kill on the board. It's so bad.
Yeah, and Fellery is so difficult for Druid to remove with its fairly weak removal.
I mean, I think the correct play is actually Keeper, because then you can trade in the the 2/4 and force the turn after.
Yeah.
So the 8/8. But also like you threaten lethal if you draw the raw. So I think definitely keeper here. I mean, you can wild growth because the game, like, it's never gonna be a draw anyway from wild growth. The game, the game is gonna be ended in the next couple of turns.
And Xixo obviously goes face here. Does he try and find a way to remove the 2/4? Do you think he can know that the only way to
like it's always a risk assessment. Like, should I play around combo? Is it really worth it? So he has to count. Like, is he gonna stall my lethal?
Yeah. And he's going for this because he's still got lethal anyway.
Exactly. So he did the math. I'm sure if the math was that he wouldn't have lethal next turn with this play, he wouldn't have played round combo. But when you can play around combo and set up lethal next turn, you usually do that.
Yeah. And he also manages just to play around simply Force of Nature on its own this way, which is obviously would have been nice for Eloise, but now she's digging. So
she needs she doesn't get it.
No, and she's only got 5 mana available to her, and no way of removing those.
There's no way of surviving here.
So she's going to be down to Paladin, and you believe it's Patron Warrior for Eloise. So, which one would you rather play against if you were her? If you played a lot of this Druid deck, which one is the better matchup for her to pick?
She's gonna go with Paladin. I'm not sure what kind of Paladin is because it really varies. Okay, she's Secret Paladin. Because it really depends on what's in the deck. Because tech cards like Alder, it really changes the matchup and makes it a lot better against aggro druids. And the same goes with Belcher. If you just play like the usual aggressive Secret Paladin with no Belchers, and no elders, the aggro druid is usually considered favorite. But if you play like mid-range druid or mid-range pally or mid-range secret pally, then I would say the paladin's favorite.
Okay. So, and we've seen nothing in the only hand that tells us anything, because all 3 of these in secret pally are just absolute staples in whichever version. So
this is such a strong turn for Xixo, and yeah, this is just so strong.
Wow.
This is what you want. Like this is the matchup where you want the small minions and innovation and just dump your hand early.
Yeah, and just stop the paladin from getting any value out of stings.
So he could charge the 3/2, or he could. He's just gonna trade.
Okay.
Interesting. And the reason he does that is because he plays better around Master for Battle. I agree. Yeah, that was definitely the best play.
Yeah, otherwise he takes like 4 random damage, 3 random damage and 1 targeted damage plus the thing itself. So yeah, he had to do something there, I guess, to remove.
You just play this as stealth hero power. Hopefully it will hit. And you trade with the 2/3 here because then at least he has to tank for 3 damage if he's gonna hit it. I think I would do it, but maybe it's not that obvious because consecration is the same amount of punish.
Right. He's just going for.
I mean, it would have worked out better for him if you traded, but I mean, you don't underestimate 2 damage to the face. Like it matters for these kind of decks.
Yes, like you run out of steam, like with this deck, if, as I understand it, fairly rapidly. So,
like in a control mirror, you would obviously always do trade play around stuff in the game. But as aggro, like as a super aggressive aggro deck like this, you have to think every single time: is it worth playing around this? How will it change my win percentage? Like let's say if we did this over 1,000 times, like what is the play with the best expected value? And sometimes it's pretty close.
And Xixo, of course, before he was known for his patron, was actually known for rapid laddering with decks like Zoo and even Face Hunter back in the day.
Yeah.
So he's known I mean, he's obviously one of the best players in the world anyway, but he's not new to this sort of style of play. It's just that these days he's so better known for Patron Warrior and so on. But he's been winning a lot of tournaments. Sort of about 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago, he won something like 3 tournaments in a row, and he's playing a lot of aggro in those.
He had a crazy streak, kind of like JJ is about to.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, Xixo, and then that's Xixo. It was like, I don't know if you guys remember, but it was just like a lot of small minions. They even played the Echoing Ooze, and then they play like Sea Giants.
Yeah.
And it was all over ladder. It was in the Undertaker meta. It was Undertaker, Hunter, and Xixo.
Because that's exactly what ladder's like at the moment. It's all Sea Giant Zoo again. So we won't be probably seeing that deck in this tournament though. Again, that's just come up in the last 2 or 3 days. So
the reason why this is a good matchup for Xixo is because usually when they play that card, they're so low it doesn't even matter. You can just ignore it. Like you just hit face for everything. So raw is if there's a noble, raw is 5-9 damage. You probably just raw here because you can always do the combatant hero power, but you're not like guaranteed to have these amount of minions.
Yeah,
I personally prefer raw or combatant here.
It's one of those situations where I'm just looking at it, I find these situations difficult to process sometimes as an observer because everything looks good. Like the ones where everything looks bad, you can sit and you can work it out, but where everything looks good, I find those,
So we disagree. Personally, I would really love putting Eloise into the.
So you would just put on to play the combat and let her deal with it, and.
I would just have raw and just like. Dealt the 9 damage to face. I would have lethal next turn with combatant. There was no there was turn 7, no Tyrion out anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't really get why he's playing around anything. What can the Secret Paladin really do?
I think something that I've seen when the top pros have seen a way to win the game, they don't look for another line. It's the one time they don't look for another line. When they've found a way to win, you don't need to find a better way to win a lot of the time. When it's not 100%, then sure, you play around everything you can think of. But when it's basically 100% like it was there, it's when you see the most disagreements between the top players.
I mean, like, at least could top deck a Belcher into Tyrion and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So if she, like, let's say if that was like worst case, if Xixo went full face, he could still top deck like Living Roots or Swipe or Keeper to finish Eloise off. That's why I like just
that makes sense.
Hitting for a lot there.
Yeah.
I don't see it like it didn't. There was no way on earth, like with even the nuts, that Eloise could kill Xixo.
So yeah, give yourself every chance to get through any taunts and stuff that may come up later.
So
and now we have the reverse match that we've already seen. It's the Patron, we think, versus Xixo's Druid, but this is the faster Druid. So who do you favour in this?
Yeah, it's obviously it's pretty even actually. The fast Druid, or I mean aggro Druid, it's not favoured against Fatigue or Control Warrior, but it's about even against Patron. Like it really also depends on the tech cards. Like Whirlwind effects are actually decent in this matchup. You always keep Execute obviously because the aggro Druid will always strive to get like an early fed out. So
yeah. And obviously dealing with 8/8s is not easy, but Execute makes it pretty easy. So
this is the most important two. Like that's the best 2-drop in this matchup. Also against other types of warrior because the War Axe doesn't kill it. And then next turn you'll play another minion, and then you can essentially attack. Maybe if you play Shade, you don't even attack. I usually don't attack here. Yeah, he agrees. But like, let's say he played, if he didn't have a Shade, he'd play like a Thanasis, then he would attack because that was a target for the weapon.
okay.
So that's like a strategy. Sometimes you just stealth the board up, and then against weapon classes, they can only hit one, and then you just have 3 minions on the board, and then you just attack with everything.
Because obviously the weapon's only picking up one guy at a time,
Exactly.
so you just keep it stealth until the point where the weapon would kill something anyway. That's what.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Yep, that makes a lot of sense to me. And decision with the Shade here.
Yeah, as I said earlier, you attack way earlier with Shades as Secret Druid. That's why I don't like Shade in this deck. I prefer the Raptor. It still needs a lot of testing, but I think it's overall better.
Right, and again, as you said a minute ago, old meta in Hearthstone sometimes is 2 weeks, and a lot changes.
Yeah, they're like, they can't, like, Xixo's not allowed to play Raptor in this deck, even if you wanted to.
Do we have a time for when, or a date when they're allowed to change these decks? Are they stuck with them for 3 or 4 games?
It's after 3 games, so some of them have 3 games, but I believe that both the person and opponent need to have like 3 games played.
Right, so sometime towards the end of next week.
Yeah, like it would be unfair if one player only had played 1 game and the other played 3 games they had to face, and it's like, you can't change it.
Yeah. I hear people crying now about the other people having more cards than them. Sounds like Reddit. So, double Savage Roar in hand is a lot of damage, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of damage when you can't clear the board. That's 11 plus 8 plus 8. Yeah, that's lethal.
And Xixo's going to take the reverse sweep with Aggro Druid.
Yeah, Aggro Druid still pretty strong. Who would have known? Who would have known?
I'm pretty sure you would have some shots you've had with Aggro Druid yourself. And that puts Xixo to 2-0 in this league, and Eloise down to 1-2. So Xixo off to a flying start in this league.
Yeah.